Hi, this is Slick Leaf 2.0, here to discuss the hypothetical theory if Gohan decides to train with the Yardratians. Now, in order to make Gohan or convince Gohan to train under the Yardratians, we have to find a trigger for him to do it, because Gohan won't do it unless there's a reason, a symbolic reason for it. It all has to have meaning and purpose for anything he does. And the only person who can really convince him to put on his gi and boots once more and keep up his training and further enhance his capabilities and techniques and his ki and spiritual is Piccolo. Piccolo's literally the one who introduced Gohan at a young age, almost when he was nearly an infant, of how to stand up and hold your ground and defend yourself. In martial arts, he literally brought out the man in Gohan. He literally embodies Piccolo's philosophy for holding your ground when no one else can be there to defend you, and you are the only one who can uphold your own ideals when others try to oppose theirs onto you. So you have to have the strength and bravery and courage to be on alert and fight back and defend and go on the offensive, and know that the opposition is always there lurking, and you can't always rely on peaceful times as a closure to lay down your gi and relax. So I think around the Buu arc, when everyone is home, and it's around the time Goku starts to train with Whis and Beerus soon after that, because it was a 2-year or 3-year gap between that time. That should be a perfect opportunity for Piccolo, since they have the discussion on the lookout. I can see Kami suggesting for Piccolo and Gohan to further their training, or I think Kami would pitch the idea to Piccolo to try to encourage Gohan to train with the Yardratians the way Goku did. Because I think in Piccolo's mind, he truly did want to further his training after the Android arc. He hasn't been able to get any other power boost, because just like Gohan, both Piccolo and Gohan has the same mindset. They want to protect the things that they care about. Now more than ever for Piccolo, it was more or less protecting himself and only looking out for his own motives and own agenda, but his agenda literally relates to Gohan's safety, security, and the rest of the Z fighters that he came to know and grow to care for. So with that in mind, him discussing a little bit with Dende about it, and Popo overhearing this, they're on the lookout, so they obviously have like numerous of knowledge. Like they probably their memory is very sharp. So when they do discuss this and they see them training on the lookout, and they realize that they're meditating, and they realize that Piccolo's priority is getting his spiritual training complete, they'll suggest Piccolo to talk to Gohan about going to the Yardrats, and possibly convincing Bulma to let them borrow a spaceship in order to go to the Yardratians. But before all that, they would have to ask Bulma to get in contact with Whis in order to get in contact with Goku to gain that information, if they don't already know the location of their planet. Now, I don't expect Goku to know where the exact location. More or less, he would probably track down their ki, and he should be able to transport them there. And I'm pretty sure Goku would be excited for any opportunity for Gohan to start training, I think that would at least motivate him, if not already, with Piccolo suggesting that he's going to do advanced training. And he knows from experience that the Yardratians do have amazing techniques, and they can bring out the ultimate potential in you that's, as I would go as far as to say, is even more better than what the Grand Kai can do, or the Supreme Kai in that matter. Like, look at the latest chapter, well, one of the latest chapters in Dragon Ball Super manga, what they did for Vegeta. It literally just brought out more of the inner power in Vegeta at his disposal. Now, as for the Elder Kai's method of sitting in place and meditating in the meditation position, Vegeta's was quite opposite on Yardrat. He had to balance on a spiky pole and balance his own weight. So in a hint, it could be like balancing your spirit and energy and really coming into one and tuning into your inner self. So you're relying totally on your mentality, because Vegeta, he's more of a tactical strategist, always trying to throw the first punch, always trying to develop a new combat technique, and not really tuning in on his own energy and how it flows through his body and muscles. He's always thinking about getting the bulk, but he understood that too much of bulk will only hinder and hold back his flow of ki and energy that's flowing through his body and lower his potential. So that's why he went for a more slim look instead of a big, bulkier figure like Trunks did when he was just frustrated and desperate for more power in order to overwhelm his opponent, but instead he got the best of him. And with both of these methods, with the Elder Kai and with the Yardrat, it's more of tuning in and really concentrating and having a deep understanding and control over and mastery of your own energy and ki, to make sure while you're, yes, you have to be physically prepped and tuned for the energy to flow properly through your body without it damaging it, but you also need to play the part and also know how to gather that inner power that's stored in you, because it's basically potential energy just stored inside of you. You just don't know how to bring it out of you. You have to be able to focus within yourself and trust in yourself and relax and just focus and listen in the deeper side of your consciousness and find the source of your strength. Vegeta never really wanted to rely on his emotions. He always relied on his pride. His family is what gives him his true power and true strength at his most desperate hour. Same thing with Gohan. The only difference is Gohan expresses it more than Vegeta does, and he doesn't always pull upon those emotions because he knows he can always mentally push through and get himself out of a tight pinch. Now for Gohan has that maximum potential because he'll utilize it when the time comes, but he's not always reluctant to always take the first opportunity to try to train and max out his potential. Now with Piccolo by his side, he can manage it pretty well, with Piccolo discussing about his struggles, because I know Gohan, before he goes on the spaceship, he's going to have a concern with going and leaving Videl with the baby, and that's a discussion that him and Videl would have alongside with Piccolo, because Piccolo is like the uncle. He's basically, or the grandfather, if that in that matter. But see, I think this will do well for both of their bonds, because Piccolo only expresses his true thoughts and true emotions in combat and with martial arts, because in that time that they spent out in the wilderness back in Z and Dragon Ball Z Kai, when they was training for the Saiyans to arrive, they truly connected on a one-to-one level. they understood that they didn't come up with parents that always was there for them, and they didn't understand why life was throwing them in such difficult situations. And the one thing that was nice about Gohan, he didn't judge Piccolo for his struggles and his obstacles, and then Piccolo, on the other hand, was able to display his knowledge of what he learned since he was little, because he's like Vegeta. He's very prideful, and he has a lot of gifts and talents if he just would put in the work and just focused on fighting. And the only way he can do that is if he picks on that strength on Gohan. They both pick off of each other. They motivate each other to just keep moving forward to further goals and reaching new heights. They're always content when they have other people around them that can take the workload. But why don't you just take that initiative for yourself and realize that you have so much more than what meets the eye? Now, for Piccolo to convince Gohan himself, because I feel like Videl will support anything Gohan put his mind to, because she knows in his heart that he will do the right thing at the end of the day. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to train and protect the ones that you love. That is something she can understand too. It's something she would have done if she wasn't focused on Pan for a period of time while she was little. Now, for Piccolo, this has to do with juggling his identity and his responsibilities, as he will discuss to both probably Gohan a little bit later after discussing a little bit with Videl, is finding what are your true responsibilities, what are you putting on yourself, because with power comes great responsibility. And juggling those things, he couldn't decide on if he should keep the demonic role play that he had such a long time ago, or should he just convert over to the Z fighters and fight for good and assist them. See, I can see him explaining to Gohan as they're trying to figure out rather if they should keep up their martial arts training, is the time that they spent together really showing how far their bond has gone so far. As just because he respected Gohan and he always cherished the time that he spent, and him not judging him for his appearance or any of his other opinions. He respected him as another human living being with the same respect he would give anyone else. And on top of that, it was also to do a friend. Even though he was rough on him in the beginning, left him alone, came back and literally told him that he could be more if he would just put in the work and the time and effort, that he saw in him the potential, but not this scrawny kid that he sees before him now. And he would have to suffer. He literally told him he would have to suffer before anything good comes from this. And out of all of that, despite all the trauma that Gohan has experienced, he still considered Piccolo a friend. And he understood the good intentions that Piccolo had for him, because he knew that with this discipline and training that he put into and bestowed upon Gohan would give him the necessary equipment and mental and physical capability that he needed in order to fight alongside the Z fighters against the Saiyans. At the end of the day, he stood his ground, and he even surprised Nappa and Vegeta for what he has come to know and love as for his fellow comrades and defending them. Even Krillin was a witness to this. Now, for Piccolo's identity, it was a struggle because just because he was on good terms with Gohan doesn't mean he was on good terms with the Z Fighters. They were kind of just coinciding with one another. They just put their differences aside after so many disputes in the past. They didn't want nothing to do with Piccolo. Now, and Piccolo felt the same way. It was mutual, but he didn't have any serious issues or beefs with them. They just coincide with one another on the same planet. So literally he was on literally he was training with Yamcha and the rest of the Z Fighters, and they were just training alongside one another. They didn't agree on everything. It was kind of like, okay, you do you, and we'll do what we have to do at the end of the day. So they just went along with the plan, but the whole thing is that Piccolo still had a lot of growth to do with his representation, even though his mindset was changed from like selfishness and more caring for and being respectful to other living beings besides himself. He still had a bad representation on Earth, and it would take time before the Z Fighters truly understood that Piccolo did fight for the right things at the end of the day, so this respect had to be there. But the reason why they was kind of like repelling one another, it was like magnets, because they always say offensive things at the end of the day. Once the fight was already done like years ago, they still, anytime they met up, they will always have harsh words to exchange to one another. And Piccolo tried to do the same to Gohan, and Gohan, all he did was respectfully throw kindness at Piccolo, so much so that he had no other choice but to return the favor. And that's all Piccolo was doing, was returning the favor. If you show him harsh words and negativity, he'll display it and dish it right back to you and probably double it. But Gohan showed him positivity, double that all the way through. Nothing but kindness and concern on his side. So Piccolo had to show concern by watching over him from time to time from a distance, and literally showing that he cares by literally sacrificing himself and taking that fatal blow, because Gohan was not mentally prepared for it. And that's something that will always stick with Gohan. And even when his father wasn't around, he was around. So with his advice and guidance, he would believe Piccolo when he says it's time to train and it's not time to get too comfortable with our current circumstances, because someone just as evil as Babidi could come around, and you know enemies lurking from Cell. And that's the same thing Goku said when he tried to leave Earth. And with Earth not having its defenders always on Earth, it leaves us accountable to take action. With Gohan realizing that responsibility and hearing Piccolo out and understanding that Piccolo would know best from day one, understanding him better than anyone else could, he would reluctantly agree to go on this trip and put everything aside. And I'm pretty sure Bulma would agree too, because she would want Gohan to train alongside with everyone else, because Bulma seen Gohan's potential. So everyone who grew up and saw this young little boy grow up would support him in furthering his training. Even if he did have to put his education to the side, literally Bulma would just support him and encourage him to do what he has to do, because she realizes that literally life would not be here tomorrow. There will be no tomorrow if they're not here to protect this earth. They realize there are other beings that are way beyond their understanding and capability to even oppose them. So with that threat lingering over their head, there's not a time to be petty and argue with disputes about who should be responsible and be held accountable if such a crisis occurred, because it's all up to us at the end of the day. The same thing with Beerus. Beerus hardly even tries to get involved in such mortal disputes, because that's what he is. He has to keep his representation. And with that being said, they go off on their journey. It probably took them about a week
6 minutes
to
and
get
37.
there. After Goku probably came back for a little bit, probably instant transmission, but if they didn't, they probably got the location regardless. And they're on their way. They're at the Yardrat. Or matter of fact, they could have got the Kais to take them. Now, finally on Yardrat, I'm pretty sure the first thing they would be taught to realize is that you have a physical body that dwells with energy and ki, and with that potential within you, if tuned and properly trained, you can extend your power. Now, the Yardrats is going to probably say the same thing they said to Vegeta before you training here. Your body and spirit are probably already going to be off. Probably not for Piccolo, but probably for Gohan, since he does enough mental training, because we're talking about right after the Buu Saga. So he could be ki balanced, but it could do some tuning. So he won't be able to project his own unique power, because you have to realize after the Zenkai boost, after they're done battling, that's a whole new like scale of power for them. If they don't try to tune that power, even Vegeta says it, like after getting a beat down, he would literally try to harness that power that he got from that Zenkai boost. Now, with anything, the Yardrats will probably start with the body. We'll start at the most straightforward to understand, because with martial arts, you always have to exercise the muscle groups, the joints of the body, to improve the healthness and fitness and strength, and of course the flexibility and balance and the coordination that comes along with it, as you see in the latest manga chapters with Vegeta trying to get flexible and get coordinated. When it's taught correctly, it also trains the core muscles to teach you how to breathe effectively. We've seen that in the Tournament of Power with Goku, who basically, when he was in a tough corner, he had to think in a last minute. He had to be basically in a meditation state while fighting, on the move. He had to relax and ease his mind by having effective breathing. It helps silence that inner voice that's usually negative inside and would usually kind of slow you down with your reaction speed. Now, the whole thing is moving meditation. So your body should know what it's going to do and anticipate what the opponent is going to do without you having to reflect on all the things that you have experienced in the past. All those things should be already programmed into your muscles. That's something that Vegeta neglected to realize over the years, and that's something he's trying to now do a whole 180 and discipline himself and train himself from scratch, and that way he'll see the full fruit of his training. And that's shocking to me, because it's such a mind opener, because I always wondered, Vegeta always trained so hard and twice as more than Goku, so why didn't he get the most out of his training? And the thing was not only was Goku's spiritual potency was a little higher than Vegeta's, but he literally put the training in the muscles, so he wasn't thinking. And that's what we said, like Goku had more of a like muscle movement, like not the moving meditation yet, but basically muscle memory, of his technique, so he always anticipated and he didn't have to think as much, so his reaction speed was way quicker, and that's what kept him sharp. And he had more of a spiritual control with his ki and using his ki more effectively, because even Vegeta admitted to it, because Goku always had decent teachers. He was always a pupil of someone. He really dove deep in martial arts and the symbolism and the skills that comes with it. Now, Vegeta, he focused more on the hand-to-hand combat, and that was it. He didn't think about his mind, his mental state. It was always pride and always having to always persevere. Okay, but literally, what about getting your muscles to anticipate and memorize the movement? Because even from the Saiyan saga, he said that fighting them going into the Namek saga has dramatically changed him in the way he senses. He can literally detect other people's ki now. That's something he picked up on. He's like a natural talent, and literally just picking up on what other people. He's very good at observing what Goku did, and he tried to do this in the Tournament of Power. In addition to that, with trying to move without thinking and trying to anticipate. And he did that with the Ranger guy, and then he did it with Jiren, and it really showed that he had some type of achievement and growth in that, but it was going to take some time before it became effective. And that was the same thing Goku had to deal with Kefla, with his Ultra Instinct state being, yes, he was able to move, which I call it the moving meditation. He mastered that, but he struggled with the physical side, with making sure his muscles remember that he wants to utilize his full potential. And if your muscles don't know that, they always hold back, because they're always trying to make sure that's what you want to do. It's always trying to anticipate how much of an output that you want, instead of memorizing how much of the output that you want. You don't want to sacrifice, speed for power, and you don't want to sacrifice power for speed. Like, either one, you don't want to sacrifice. You want to balance between. Anyways, guys, I'll probably make a part 2 later if this video is received well. I know I didn't talk too much about Gohan's aspect and not really doing too much of storytelling, but I kind of just wanted to get the aspect of the training would be on the training aspect, and not too much of the story and the journey and in the discussion with how all the other characters would feel about it, because that would be a lot more research and time consuming to do, just like this. Just to give an idea to myself and others on this theory and topic, and basically to expand upon it, and to be able to have a beginning and know where I'm going forward, and then trying to improve upon it. But I'll do that in part 2. Thanks for watching. Comment down below if you have any opinions or feedback.